because I don't think they've got a lot of support from the village of Nyack in the past. Once again, thank you for your time and your efforts, and I hope that you follow through and make some common sense laws. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on, if you're not on the list, we don't, at 9:30, you've already had 3 minutes to talk about a different issue.
You've been up since 4:30 in the morning.
I've been up since 2:30 in the morning.
I don't know what to feel. I've been up pretty early.
All right, I know, stipulate to the fact that you would disagree with the way he's characterized what's going on.
Vociferously.
Then let's just stipulate to that. I understand that you would have a different perspective on that, and I think that my perspective, all right, come on up. We don't usually let people have 2 shots at public comment. Give them 1 minute.
It's 7 on a separate agenda, yeah.
Yeah, but it's still, you pick and choose your opportunities.
I mean, sure.
I got 15. I'll take 15.
Yeah, he's making fun.
The way that he characterized individuals in our village, and yes, there are some people who have problems and there are people who have felt unsafe, rightfully so. But the way that the interpretation and the characterization of people in this village, especially people who are unhoused, you should give you pause to think about how you're voting for this. That's all.
Thank you, Taylor. Any other,
I have a question.
yeah.
I thought we no longer have that mobile, Andy, didn't we have a mobile shower?
The shower unit from Helping Hands.
Is it coming down? Do they not come? here?
I haven't seen them for a long time. There are probably at least a half a dozen social service agencies that work with people who are in various ways challenged in the village of Nyack. The police spend a lot of time talking with people, trying to refer them. There's outreach workers from substance abuse groups, there's outreach from Catholic Charities. There's the soup kitchen, there's the folks with the shower. I don't know how often they come around, they haven't talked to me for a while. There was a mobile health truck that would come through, haven't talked to them for a while. I think their RV stopped working, so they canceled that program.
They lost their grant.
They lost a grant. Yeah, I'm not sure the details of it. Thank you. But there's a whole ecosystem of social service agencies, which and the mayor and I have both talked with Catholic Charities in the last day or so. They know Manuel, Mark, and Marianne well, the 3 people who are lounging with baggage and whatnot on the benches in Hezekiah. They offer them services. Their general message to the village in those meetings we had last year was the professionals involved with outreach feel that the support in terms of money, to panhandlers and other things are making it harder for them to convince people to come in to their services. So they're generally supportive of the village's efforts, for example, against panhandling with the diversion of charitable giving into organizations which actually have programs. We've gotten that message from those agencies. And that's just kind of a summary of what I've seen is a lot of very diligent efforts, which clearly have not moved the dial in terms of the few people who are using Hezekiah Easter as more or less an outdoor living room, 24 hours a day. And my best guess is that it will continue in this way until the weather or some other factor comes along which changes things.
So panhandling, I thought I heard that was not a crime, like.
I just to clarify the point, I'm fairly certain that Tarrytown does not have a law
Yeah,
that,
it's not.
because it's not just the First Amendment right to ask people for money.
Yeah.
There's not a First Amendment right to continue to follow them, and sometimes you can restrict where people do, where they do solicit for money, but there is a constitutional right a First Amendment right to ask. So we're not, to answer your point, that's why we do not have a law against that, because it would be unconstitutional.
This gentleman mentioned it, I was like,
Yeah.
I thought it wasn't, but if it is, can we?
Yeah, we do. Our local law does prohibit soliciting in the park particularly. But whether or not it's constitutional is another question.
We also do have a restriction for soliciting for it's a word you use, essentially panhandling on sidewalks, so outside of parks, but I'm just using words that are not necessarily from the code, my own memory. It's like an aggressive, the word is not used aggressive, but it's just simply asking is not gonna be a violation of our code, and if we did make it a violation of our code, just simply asking one time for panhandling would most likely be unconstitutional, like just on an open sidewalk.
And we do not have it on the agenda tonight, so it's not second, so. More comments from the board.
I'd like you to look into what Tarrytown's website and see.
Tarrytown does, I will guarantee you that Tarrytown does not enforce that law. If it's on their books, it does not enforce that law.
I've researched this very, 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 very deeply and very recently, and I've written memos on it, and I've had long discussions with Andy about it. And I've exchanged emails with not all of you. What we have on the books, really would not pass muster constitutionally if we made it any stricter than it is. There may be some tweaks we could do here and there,
Which we're not doing tonight anyway.
correct, so I just want to comfort you that what we have on the books is probably as far as we can take it, other than some modest tweaking, okay? And that's, I tell you that with utmost confidence.
Joe,
Okay, Memorial Park, smoking is prohibited.
yes.
Why can't we do the same thing with Easter Veterans School?
I thought we talked about getting that on the smoking as well as the time.
The village can change that law. Right now, the village parks law prohibits smoking in the Marina Park and Memorial Park, but not in Hezekiah Easter.
Right, now, if we're going to square the opening of to match that of the marina, we should also include.
Do you want to amend the,
Prohibition on
the
smoking.
resolution to close from 12 AM to 6 AM until further notice and signs be posted accordingly? And smoking is prohibited at all times?
I would think so.
Any thoughts?
Can I just ask though,
Yeah.
because at least for like Memorial Park. There's barriers to stop people from going down after dusk and,
And they're never put up.
I mean, I understand that, but like at the end of the day, Hezekiah Easter Park also abuts a parking lot, so like how are we going to like define this if someone's just walking through? Is OPD gonna say, oh, sorry, you can't walk here, here's your ticket for being in the park at dusk? Or is it more of a lengthy loitering, because people do pass through there all the time, so I do wanna also think about how this is even going to be enforced. And in terms of that, are we targeting our enforcement to the 3 people who are there?
It would be enforced the way it's generally enforced, which is, oh, you can't walk through here. That's what they generally do. They don't issue citations until they've given plenty of warnings on these kinds of violations.
I have a question. So after midnight, when people are walking through from the bar, they decide to sit down and chill for a moment.
Closed.
Right, but will it be enforced for those folks also?
If the police come across them, they'll enforce it. Absolutely. It's closed to 12. If we want to amend it to close it at 2 to not capture that, that's the board. I think that I don't mind aligning it with the other parks.
I mean, I don't mind aligning it with the other parks, I am concerned. Well, one. This is a village of 7,000 people, we are not New York City or San Francisco where there are millions and millions of people living there. We will never be at that level, so the 3 homeless people who are part of this village, we shouldn't be punishing them, we should be treating them, we should be getting them services, which I know we've been working on doing, so there's that, and that's a separate issue, but I am concerned about enforcement to some degree. I do also, I mean, it's kind of in a weird spot, it's a right of way to some degree, like, it's a very open place, so I have trouble envisioning enforcement. I mean, maybe it should be more aligned with when the bars close, because there will be people loitering in that area past 2 AM getting to wherever their final destination may be. Only just because of the nature of our downtown. It might be worth considering that, I mean, the no smoking rule. I just kind of see that as arbitrary. I mean, at one point you're in Hezekiah Easter Park, next point you're on the sidewalk, it's that's how open it is, so I don't know. Smoking is something we should even include just because of the space where it's at. But I don't have an issue closing a park only because we do close Memorial Park during those hours. I just think it might need to be more tailored to, you know, our nightlife. I'm thinking more like in the summertime or even on, you know, New Year's when everyone's just out late. And they're sort of loitering around, even if they're not causing a disturbance, they might just be sitting there trying to catch their breath or sobering up before they go home or catching their Uber.
Just can I make this is just nuance. My reading of our park law is the village board via resolution can close a park for a period of time. As far as smoking goes, I don't know. That's in our law, and I would defer to Dennis. I'm not sure you can change the smoking law without having a public hearing and going through the usual process for amending
Our
it.
code, it has to be by local law. Anytime you change anything in the code,
Yeah.
it has to be by local.
It just so happens that our code says that the village board can close park facilities when it needs to.
Well, it says that already in the code.
But he's saying.
I'm saying that it doesn't say that for smoking.
We can't ban smoking without having a public hearing, which maybe we take it up at a different time.
Yeah, okay, that's another.
We can fight out.
I'm just trying to decouple those things because I think they're different legally.
I think I get that. I also, it sounds like we're a little bit torn, so maybe we should just table this vote.
I don't want to table it. I mean, you can make a motion to table it. We need to move on these things. We do. People, all right, here's what I'm gonna say, I take issue with some of your characterizations, but I understand what your frustrations are with regard to the condition of the downtown. We have an intolerable situation right now, and I'm not afraid to say it. We have an intolerable situation. Public facilities are used by the public. They should not be taken over by anybody. And I would say that that's why we do not allow people to have restricted events in Memorial Park, because we do not allow people to take public facilities and use them for private purposes. And I feel very strongly about that. And the fact is that it has become a problem in Memorial Park, and I believe we need to close it. And I think that at the same time, I'm sympathetic and empathetic to the conditions which have led to people to decide to sleep there and take over the park at night, or the square. But I did have a meeting today with Catholic Charities, and I did talk to them. I talked to the 2 outreach coordinators that have worked night, that know the people that are there. They are 100% behind closing the park because they want to take away that option for these people to sleep there. They don't want them to have that option because there are other options, there are services that they are refusing to take. And the reason they are refusing to take it is they have the other option of sleeping in our park, in our square. So I understand the sensitivities of the way we talk about people, and I don't want to be perceived as talking about people in a way that denigrates them or dehumanizes them in any way. I am giving them full agency that they are making choices to sleep there because they have that option, and we're trying to take that option away. And I think we should take that option away, and we should continue to and work with the Catholic outreach and as well as the other agencies that are there to get them services and to get them places to sleep that are inside and warm and safe and clean. That's what I would like to do. But one of the ways we do that is we close off an option for them to sleep in the park, and that's what I would suggest that we do. I would suggest we vote on this, and I think it's a valid response to the situation that we have right now. Anybody else?
Oh. I agree 100% with Mayor Rand. We have to take some steps now before the situation spirals. But I just also in the executive session, I'll tell you a little bit about what was done today with one of the residents of the park. Positive things. But Joe's right. I mean, we have to take away this the option of using this is public property. It's owned by all the residents. Residents don't want to sit down there. They don't want to go there anymore. It's clear. I mean, and you can ask them to not to spread out over a bench, but they do it anyway. And we have to take this step. I think it's an important step to take. It might not be the most the best step, but it's a step that we do need to take.
We literally had an event a few weeks ago.
What's that?
I'm just saying I hear what you're saying, and I'm not discounting what people are saying, but people are still using that park. There were events there. We had a whole summer in the park there.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not as though people aren't using our facilities.
What events do we have that we closed off to the public?
No, I'm saying we haven't, but I'm saying that this consumption that no one wants to be there, that it's not safe, that's not inherently true.
Oh, that's what you mean.
An
Yeah.
event is something else, but people walking, passers-by, people going out of restaurants, they wanna sit down, they can't.
Right.
They can't.
No, I understand.
It's a tough, it's a, you know, it's a tough situation.
Anybody else? All right, we had, we've gone through a vote before, but let's do it again. If there's no other comment or question, I'll call it, all in favor?
Aye.
Alright.
Okay, that's all right.
I'm in favor, all opposed? Nobody's opposed, it's all 5-0. All right, the 6.8 resolution 2024-139, the resolution approving request to the Orangetown Police Department to enforce park rules, including park hours and prohibition against sleeping or protracted lounging on park benches. Can I get this on the table? All right, comment or question? Public comment or question, come on.
Jim Wilcox, 2 L's.
Jim Wilcox, the chairman of the Parks Commission. While I applaud the effort to get the police to be able to do more enforcement, my experience is that it's been falling on deaf ears. Every night they may come down to the park, but as soon as they leave, the park and the marina get overtaken. And so I'm not sure what we can do to actually make the police be more effective. So while the resolution is really good, I'm curious as to why this time it may be better than what we've had in the past in terms of the response for them actually getting people out of the park at 10 o'clock.
We got the request from the OPD to pass a resolution like this so that they will understand that we were supporting them in the efforts to keep people from violating park rules. That's the actual purpose of it, is that they have expressed concerns that if they go out on a limb and try to enforce park rules, that they will not be supported by the village administration. So this is a way of trying to express support for them in enforcing the rules that we've set out in our code.
So I guess I'm just, I mean, I'm hoping that this helps. I'm just a little confused why, if these are laws on the book already, why a resolution is needed for them to be able to enforce them.
I agree with you. I don't know why it's needed either, right? Except we've been asked to do that from that perspective, it's harmless. It's simply asking the police to enforce the rules that they're tasked to enforce. But they did ask us to make a statement like this to be able to articulate support for them enforcing the rules so that there would not be a concern that we would turn around and criticize them for what we've asked them to do.
So I guess the last thing is that, do we feel that they will be held a little bit more accountable for following up on it?
I don't know. Maybe.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Question, Alex, come on. I'll do that. Give him 1 minute.
So 1 minute, not 30.
1 minute.
Here you have 1 minute.
Okay, great. I don't know what what housing period is available to homeless people in Rockland County. The warming center operates from April until November until April. After that, there is no shelter and there is no other housing that's available. Now, there's a Supreme Court decision that says that's not good enough. You can still find people. I get that. But I would submit to you as the village board, that's not the way to act on this. Because provide housing, there is none. And the board to have people turn out the park, that strikes me as the best idea in view of the fact that housing is during this month is simply not available. Thank you.
Thank you.
Some confusion, some question?
Yeah, you said that OPD access to do this resolution. And so that for whatever we do, whatever they do, whatever enforcement they do, we're in support of them. Do I have that right?
I wouldn't say that it's for whatever enforcement they do, but they wanted us to articulate, here's what it is. Sorry. These are rules that are on the books. There are rules that are not always enforced. We have plenty of rules that are not
Right.
enforced on the books. We have people violate the law every day in a variety of ways. These are rules that are generally, the police are not going to spend time enforcing rules about park closure. They've got higher order things to do. We've specifically asked them to enforce the rules on park closures to try to make sure that the parks are available for everybody. What they have said is that, well, we want you to, I wouldn't say this has been a specific, but the request that we got had to do with the idea that they want to know that we're actually going on record that we want these rules enforced, that we're not simply, they're on the books, but we don't particularly want them, we want them to prioritize the enforcement of these rules.
So,
We don't want them to ignore them because they have other things to do.
so by us doing that publicly, now they're going to be better about enforcing.
They're going to prioritize enforcing what are relatively low-level violations. Now, that doesn't mean that anybody's going to get arrested because they're not, I mean, what they've said is they generally will not issue citations in these kinds of situations, but they will ask people to leave if they're violating, if they're on a park property when they're not supposed to be on park property.
Okay.
Did I have that right, Andy?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
I understand, and that's, the discomfort you're feeling is exactly the point of the resolution, I think.
What?
I think the discomfort that you're feeling is the fact that you don't want to make a statement in support of police enforcing the village code in a way that if the police did something wrong, that we would then be saying, oh my God, we asked them to do this. But I think what they're saying is that they don't want us to then turn around if there were to be an altercation or something happen, say, oh, we didn't know they were doing that. That's what it comes down to. We have a code. If we have a code, then we should say we want the code to be enforced. If we don't want the code to be enforced, then don't have a code.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that. While I'm not in full agreement with the premise, I mean, we have sections in our own meetings where we have Orangetown Police Department and they're not here. And I understand that you're meeting with them every hour, but if we have all these issues, well, not every hour, every month. But if we have all of these issues and we're hearing from them, why do they not come to our meetings? Like, why do we not hear from our police? We're hearing from them ad hoc through other people. These are issues that people want addressed and the people should hear from them.
I think that's a fair point. I think we should invite them more aggressively to come to the meetings.
Yeah, so while I think this is fine, it's fine that they want to be supported, and with saying there's no one on this board who doesn't support Orangetown PD, it would be worth it if they came to our meetings. And I believe we had this discussion, they were supposed to come quarterly. I haven't seen them maybe once I saw them this year. So I would like to see them at meetings more because people are bringing these things up and they like to hear what the police are doing.
I agree
Because a
with
lot
that.
of this has to do with enforcement.
I agree with that. Let's make sure that we have that on the agenda, that at least once a quarter, that we have Detective Sergeant Palazzolo or somebody from the department come and be able to address questions and things like that.
Well, at this point, I think it should be more than a quarter because we tried that and we haven't seen.
Well, let's have them come to the next meeting and then we'll see how we feel after the next meeting.
I think that's fair.
Any other comments or questions?
And so. My apologies, I was not here at the last meeting, but I know there were some discussions about, making this benches a little bit more comfortable. Right, so people can't lounge, where are we on that? So if I can't, most people don't sleep sitting up, most people can, but not everybody can do that. How do we do that so that we can defer people from, go ahead, Andy, I'm sorry.
No, just to answer your question.
No, yeah, to answer your question, we installed armrests on benches that otherwise are just flat. And it makes it a lot harder to lie down on the bench. It's not impossible if you're very small to be able to slide under. The central armrest is kind of a larger hoop. And so in some cases, at least one person who typically is able to slide under. I haven't gotten around to putting the next level excluder in there. It's not just about sleeping, it's about lounging I mean, you've seen,
No,
yeah,
I know what you're talking
yeah.
about. I think, I mean, it's an eyesore. I mean, most people wouldn't wanna sit there if it does look like that. I get that. I'm just trying, once I hear police and people with potential people with mental health. Mental illness, it heightens my anxiety.
Yeah.
Right? Because we've seen numerous interactions, right? Yes, we have a code, but I'm also want to make sure that we're also protecting the people that live here, right? So that they're not getting hurt because we don't want them there. We don't want them there. I also want to, let's find solutions to find where they can go. Right? We can't force somebody to go into a shelter, but you can't stay here. That's all. That's our goal. You can't stay here. We just need to give you an alternative of where you can go. It just can't be here. But I also don't want to have people getting hurt in the interim of trying to get them out.
Yeah.
That's just it. That's fine. That's ultimately.
Yeah, it kind of, because I spend a lot of time talking with the police about the local scene. And I mean, we've all seen at the national scale, issues around police reform and the need to de-escalate and so on. Our police spend most of their time on medical aid and domestic incidents. They are very engaged in outreach to people who are indigent in various ways in our community, spending time with them, building relationships, making referrals to agencies, and attempting to do what a number of different social service agencies have done, which is basically social work to try to case manage towards a safer kind of set of choices and conditions for people. That's what I've seen. I've literally spent 45 minutes with Sergeant Palazzolo speaking with Manuel about the various reasons why he is in a situation where he is. That happens a lot. The woman who sometimes has a very some sort of a psychiatric episode on Main Street near Big Red Books. Last time she was behaving very erratically and speaking loudly and laughing and so on. The police came and casually walked up to her, did an impromptu health check just to make sure that she wasn't in need of medical, response. They're never looking to make an arrest or to escalate. They're always looking to try to direct somebody towards a safer course of behavior or action. And I think that's precisely why they need to know where the village board stands as far as enforcement, because enforcement, which is always verbal for getting compliance, not about issuing citations and summons. It does require them to take a slightly different approach to people who they're trying to cajole into the various social service agency kind of programs. And that is a little bit of a balance because they may alienate someone who they would rather have the trust of. And so that's where the policing balance needs to be kind of struck in a way that's as effective as possible. So that's why I think the sergeant anyway, who's our community liaison, basically said, yeah, we'll do more to enforce this rule, but we want to make sure that the community and the board is really behind us when we do it. Because we're all acknowledging that it's a difficult balance between taking care of people individually and being charitable and protecting the public space for the use of all. It's a hard balance to strike. And they're doing it every day.
Can I just say one other thing on this? So we closed the park, but I've noticed that because there's new people, these other people that came into our village, not the ones that we're used to, are now on other benches. So are they going, because I've seen, I'm driving around and it's not just the park. So are they going to be enforcing that?
So that raises, I'm glad you asked that. We have people who are lounging or sleeping on private properties that are publicly accessible behind the Nyack Center, in the entryway to the old sign of the Time Shop, and the entryway to the Up Lounge. on the upper level of the river space commercial kind of retail area there. And those property owners have also voiced their concerns as far as the safety for the customers and the kind of the sense of what's happening with these people who clearly are struggling. And it's, I don't know where everybody is at any hour in there, but I think you're right to speculate that if we limit access to one area, you're more likely to find people finding other alternatives. And so where is that exactly going to be? I don't know. I think we have one individual who's in front of the church, right? The South Broadway Church right here in sort of a landscaped area a lot.
I saw somebody right outside of what the brick house used to be, like by Tallman Towers.
Right.
That just is camping on that then.
So are these spaces, and then you have Memorial Park, the upper lawn, it's typical for at least two people to be sleeping on benches on the upper lawn of Memorial Park pretty much every night. And everybody's got a story, everybody's got their reasons, everybody's considered their various options, family, agencies, etc. And it's diverse and kind of delicate.
Any other suggestion? But I think some of the concern about the language is it's a little curt, which is, I gone over this with you, and so it's my fault for not spotting this earlier. I would suggest that we amend the resolution language, the resolve language. I'm not looking at the packet, I'm looking at the agenda. Is the packet more detailed than what's in the agenda, or is it just the simple two whereas in the resolve clause?
This is just the resolution.
All right, so here's what I would change the resolve clause to. And I will, Linda, I will send this language to you. I don't have it in an email all lined up to go to you, so you don't have to worry about it. You can incorporate it later. The village board requests that the Orangetown Police Department enforce park closure hours as well as the prohibition on sleeping or protracted lounging on park benches or other areas of the parks. And this is what we'd be adding, comma, with sensitivity and empathy to the individuals involved, comma, and to coordinate with social services agencies in their attempts to provide services to those individuals. And the reason for the change is to try to articulate the fact that we want a balance of that we want them enforcing the rules, but we also want them coordinating with the social services agencies to try to ensure these people are getting services, that we're not just pushing them along out of the park, as well as to remind them to work with sympathy, sensitivity and empathy to the people involved, because they are people deserving of dignity when they're in their interactions with the police. Is everybody okay with that change to the language?
Yeah.
Yep. All right.
Just the park, right?
This is just, yeah, this is all just related, it's all related to just the parks. Any comments or questions, any further comments or questions? All in favor of the resolution as I amended it just a few minutes ago?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, time, Linda, I will send that to you right now. All right, we're up to department reports. As Pascal noted, we don't have a report from the Orangetown Police Department today. We will have one in the next meeting. Village administrator, and let's be mindful of the time.
Just a couple of things.
Why don't you get a mic?
Oh, sorry.
We'll come back.
Just working. Just a couple of updates. The EV chargers in the marina are working now.
Do we have an update tomorrow when they stop working again?
No, they're working. They're working. They haven't stopped working. But they are working, which is exciting. And we have meetings next week with Orange and Rockland, hopefully charting a pathway towards completion for the ones on Main Street, off of Main Street. In terms of construction projects upcoming, the Waterline project, which was recently awarded to Fletcher Kramer, is expected to start this fall and go through next summer. The Safe Streets to Schools project is expected to go into construction in the spring. Just so you have some sense that next year's gonna be a busy year for sidewalks and water lines and so on, just like it is every year. Safe routes to school, right? It's the focus, it's sidewalks on Depew Avenue,
hopefully the street.
Midland, Summit, and Main Street. Those key sidewalk areas. The Great Lawn project is sort of in
in its kind of September phase, which is some more work with our contractor, filling in spots where the grass didn't grow in that well for various reasons, and looking forward to a process of getting rid of the crabgrass and fostering more kind of coherent green coverage in the spring. We have invested in putting our irrigation underground. So we'll be able, because in a typical year, even in the best of conditions, it basically turns brown during the heat of the summer. So having a little water out there will keep it green and nice. That does mean we're going to have to be super careful about driving on that lawn. Whenever we have an event which requires, say, the fire truck or somebody else to park in there, we're going to put little flags all over the place to make sure they don't run over our sprinkler heads. But it's worth it, I think. And I'll keep my update to, oh, and lastly, I sent out the ETPA survey as directed by the village board. And so that's out and we're starting to get responses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a-
Oh, wait.
First, okay.
Oh, no, go ahead,
Okay,
actually.
I have a question for two, one to follow up. So one is, when DPW is mowing the lawn in the park and all of that. There was an incident before where, because it's not covered, their weed whacker or whatever, where it broke someone's windshield. But they're not, they said they're not gonna pull the village liable, he had it fixed. Somebody else came to me and also said that they did still see like things flying. So they just wanted to know for safety reasons, could that be rectified or?
Yeah, I will talk with John about the equipment, making sure it has the proper shields on it.
On the back, okay,
Right,
thank you. And
thanks.
the other thing that I'd like to follow up on is Myra Jean-Gilles, who does the daycare center. We were going to do something for a pickup drop off.
Yeah, sorry,
And I
I
just
haven't been
wanted
able
to-
to execute on that. I've just been super busy and a little concerned about the right
The
way.
logistics.
It's a tight street and I mean, I'm not convinced that it makes sense to legalize a drop off in the exact spot they want it. And so I've talked with Pascal about this. She's part of the family, obviously. And it's just it's a little hard, honestly. It's a narrow street and we have a lot of narrow streets in the village, and maybe one more kind of bottleneck isn't that big a deal. But I think maybe the right way to go is just to have sort of a courtesy, turning a blind eye to people who do a short little stop there, but not necessarily creating a legal drop-off zone in a place where we end up with a bottleneck. And there is parking right in front on Broadway. It's right there. I mean, all you gotta do is pull in.
But I know, but I
Really
talked
not
to
safe
her
with the
mom,
little
I
ones.
come that way.
Right, so people
And
don't want to
a
get out
lot
of their
times
car
you
into
gotta
traffic.
kind of
And
Stick around, yeah, so.
so,
But-
I mean, they don't have a parking lot, so.
But to follow up on that point though, I did sort of start polling some neighbors just to see what their thoughts were. One concern did come up, and I know it has to do with Marion Street, was the curbs for some people, for the sidewalks over there. I did let people know about the sidewalk program, but because I know you mentioned the safe routes to school, I wasn't sure if the places where there was concern, are those some of the streets that also may be maybe done later,
Covered.
yeah.
So we have an application to CDBG for a whole sidewalk overhaul in that neighborhood.
Yeah,
And so I can't tell you exactly which sidewalks, mostly Marion and Jefferson,
okay,
First Ave and Third
okay,
for the most part,
yeah,
if you imagine that sort of box.
yeah.
And so when that moves forward, we'll have a lot of conversations and make sure that we get the engineering right. Build the ADA ramps and so on.
Just to sort of piggyback, I'm wondering if it's then worth revisiting some of those discussions about parking on both sides of the streets. I've from the few folks I've spoke to, I haven't gotten all the way up that street. A couple people just feel more comfortable because the sidewalks are the concern. It's bad. A lot of people walk in the middle of the street because the sidewalks are crap.
Right.
Not the best, excuse me. So that was another concern that folks had in terms of some of the alternate side parking rules and things like that.
Right, we definitely, when we spend that money on the sidewalks, it will make the pedestrian experience a lot safer. And people will be much less likely to walk in the street or trip. Yeah, and that's a benefit.
And you said you just put that, they asked because they were like, they've been talking about this for
When's that?
years.
No, it's just one of our applications. There's a pipeline.
Okay.
Yeah.
A quick question about the Grant Lawn, when, I understand the update, but what's the end date? Do you have any type of end date when the fences come
The
down?
fence will come down in the next few weeks by the end of September. And then we'll continue to do a kind of process of aeration, overseeding, crabgrass control, trying to scare away the geese and so on. And hopefully we won't need to re-fence it. There'll be some areas which need to be maybe a little topsoil and seed, which we might put a little restriction around. But it should be open for the public to run around on shortly.
Well, that's good. So while we do the other measures, the park will be open.
Right, yeah, the fence is gonna come down.
That's good. When that fence comes down, I wanna be like Reagan in East Germany. Take this, Andy, take this fence down.
So wait, are we all invited to come with our like hammers and
Yeah,
chisels
we're gonna-
to take the fence down as a village?
It'd be like falling the Berlin Wall.
Yeah, like are we
Spray
doing this as a
painted.
village?
Take a little piece home.
Yeah, it's a little piece home, you know.
Anything else?
That's it.
No report from the village clerk? No report from the village treasurer. Old business, we haven't made any progress on the constable. We might have a proposal for you for the next meeting. Andy, I just sent you a text about it. So we'll talk about that next time. The grant for youth employment and recreation activities. This is the Nyack Hoops thing.
It's part of it, yeah. So I had given in the packet, there's a memo from me about this grant program. And I'm looking for guidance from the village board. The original idea, which Mayor Hammond worked on, and it took a really long time to get it, but Zabrowski's office finally got an application into the state, which then took a really long time to award a contract for $30,000 to be split 15 for the ambassadors, which is the youth employment program, welcome people to Main Street, 10 for the basketball and 5 for the football. We basically spent the money on the ambassadors, and we need to close out that first grant. We're unable to obtain the kinds of paperwork from basketball and football that we need for them to be able to be qualified to receive money. And so we also, as a nice thing with a tailwind, the state and Zabrowski's office then turned around and said, we got $25,000 more coming for use on similar stuff. So what I'd like to do is close out grant number 1 by funding fully the ambassadors program to continue, so that we can keep that program going, because it was a success. It created employment for youth, and it created a nice kind of look for the village, and was well received. And defer, and that way at least we'll have that one grant locked down, because we're in danger of losing that money. And then use the next grant towards football and basketball, when hopefully those programs will be kind of cleared up. There is a separate kind of option here, which is that we could use part of the first grant for basketball if we simply have the YMCA provide free basketball camp tuition to Nyack residents. It would be an easy way of benefiting Nyack residents and spending that money. And they obviously would love to be able to give away free tuition to Nyack kids.
Do we know how many kids would be covered on that? How much money, how much is each tuition?
I haven't
Like
done
if
the
it's 10
math on
kids,
it.
I'm not as excited as if it's 40 kids.
No, because if we're saying $10,000 and the typical basketball program may cost $350 or something like that.
That's 30 kids.
That's right. That's one round of 30 kids, right? You quick
And I-
math, yeah.
While I was thinking about this, could I just ask a question? So for the Y to take it over, will they encompass that program going forward, or is it just temporary?
It's up to the village board how you want to spend the money. What's not up to you is our status with the funder. Because they're insisting that we provide a rational way of spending this money on the goals that we put in our grant application. And so far, we have failed to do that, except with the exception of the ambassadors program, which was great. So I need options. Like if we continue to wait for the hoops program and the football, we may simply lose the money because we're already overdue in presenting those applications to the state for the first tranche of money. I don't think I should get into the personal. I mean, it's called Rocktown Warriors, and
Oh, okay.
it's a sort of a league for little kids,
Yeah,
and that's a wonderful thing. And in both cases, the nonprofit status isn't there, and we have a lot of work to do. This one thing is required multiple conversations and attempts to get the certain nonprofit status, insurance, a budget, a plan that can be funded either with village dollars, if we have some in the case of basketball, or the state money, which is not going to get used unless you can provide reasonable justification for
I
it.
know exactly.
Yeah.
I am
You've been
putting
through
through
that.
that grant
Yeah.
myself, so I know what it is. And I know I know why they asked for that. It's the states. That's the SFS program.
Yeah, and also just to be clear, there are things that Anne Marie is a wonderful grants administration, and there are things that we don't understand about how this grant works. Like we need to start submitting paperwork simply to find out if we're going to be supported or not. You know, it's like so, but the clock is ticking. We haven't been able to do it, and we're nervous that we'll ultimately put something in, and they'll say no, that's all wrong. You got to go back, and we need partners who are responsive and capable of saying, "Here's my insurance. Here's my W-9, whatever it is. Here's my program. Here's my participation program. Here's the NIAC kids who were in it. Here's how we're spending our money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." And it's kind of bureaucratic.
Andy, I have a question. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're looking for, like, the programs already exist. They just don't have the status. So you actually kind of just need a pass-through. Somebody that can basically be their fiscal overhead, just to make sure that the monies are received and basically delegated.
Right, so one of them is working with the community foundation for exactly that purpose. And I don't have the deal yet.
The village could have been that pastor.
No. No, are you proposing that we hire the football and the basketball coaches and put them on the payroll and then run a youth athletics program?
I say that because I mean these programs have been around for quite some time, both on and off. And obviously this is a lot longer of a conversation, and I know I emailed you about it, but why don't we have a Parks and Rec department running these programs? We used to.
So there was a while back, pre-pandemic, an individual who was hired by the village to do some special events organizing and some activities down in the park. That did exist. It hasn't existed for a while. So we don't have a staffed program coordinating service around youth athletics.
Actually, it's still in the budget, it's just is zeroed out. And zeroed out for 5 years. There's
Right.
still a line item there for it.
I mean, obviously we'll get to budgeting
We
next
should
year,
talk
but
about, I think it's a great
worth the
idea that we should have
discussion.
a Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
We should have a budget for it.
Yeah.
We just don't have the
Bring
budget
it
now.
back, right.
Yeah.
And
Why don't we table this for now? Oh, good. You have something
No,
else?
I think we should.
Because I think there are people that have very strong feelings about what we should be doing here, and I think that it's something we can handle offline. We don't need to handle it immediately.
Right.
Individually about it. I'm generally in favor of whatever I sort of understand what you're saying. I said if we did with the Y, I would want to make sure that we are providing the scholarships to the most needy people, so I suggested filtering them through the NIAC Center to go through their
Yep.
list.
And I asked Kim about that today, and she said she'd be happy to help.
Okay. So I, at the very least, I think we should do that, but if we can still maintain the current structure in some way, I'm in favor of that as well, and I'll defer to my colleagues who have more experience in the structure of that to express on that. Is that fair? We don't have any resolution or anything on that we have to do. Andy, why don't we'll talk about dogs next time?
Okay,
Is anybody here to talk about dogs? No, all right. So
I just need to know, is the board okay with us continuing the ambassadors program, another $15,000?
Oh, because we have the grant money for that.
Right.
I do have a question. Is there anything in this grant that literally says that that money has to be used specifically for a specific program?
So we're gonna find out.
Please.
It's, the main goal was youth employment and support for youth kind of activities.
Okay.
Will we be able to spend all ambassadors? That's what we're gonna find out.
Right, because you don't want to say yes and then you end up can't.
It just, I need something to submit.
No, I understand.
I spent half the money up front for the ambassadors, and I can't even submit on that until I have a full $30,000 worth of stuff.
Understood. Understood, okay.
That's another $15,000 on the thing. All right, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
This is getting. All right, so we're skipping the dogs, affordable housing. Joe, you want to describe what's in your memo? Joe wrote a memo about affordable housing and a glitch that he found in the yeah, Mike there.
Oh, yeah.
The mic's right there. Okay, sorry.
So basically, there's a discrepancy in the code when it comes to affordable housing. A number of places, basically, it talks about affordable housing being 10% of the total number of dwelling units. There is a place, so that is a minimum, that is mandatory, 10%. There is a place in the code that talks about the application for special permits to the village board or the village planning board. And it says basically when a multifamily development contains 10% or more affordable housing workforce units, then that allows a special permit process to go on. But the 10% or more, the 10% is mandatory. So we are rewarding developers with a special permit if they provide the minimum mandatory amount. So basically what I want to do is to change that wording to basically say that change it to when a multifamily development contains more than 10% of affordable and workforce units, that then triggers the request for a special permit.
So in other words, changing it that right now people are getting the special benefits by doing 10%, but they're required to do 10% anyway, so they have to do more than 10%.
Exactly. Exactly. That's it. A small change.
And what's the posture of this at this point? We have no resolution or anything on it, right?
Right, I think it's fair to say that would be easy to draft.
Do we need
I like the.
Famous last words.
Yeah.
Yeah, the schedule, authorize the scheduling of a public hearing, I'll circulate a draft, it's a pretty simple fix.
It's an important.
The procedure is the same that we have to go through with every local law, and because it's not zoning.
So it might not require county.
Yeah, it's not zoning, does not have to go to the county planning department, does not have to go to our own planning board, so it'll be a little bit simple.
It'll tighten up our zoning code and, you know.
Not zoning.
Not zoning.
I'm sorry.
Affordable housing.
It'll be a simpler process than if we were amending the zoning code.
Okay, is everybody generally in favor of the idea?
Yes.
So we're all good with that. All right, so we'll get that on the agenda with the resolution for next meeting. 10.
So next meeting, there will be a resolution to set a public hearing. We set it right now if you want. Right, I'm trying to follow the mayor. So for first meeting in October.
Yeah.
Not the one 2 weeks, so let's go.
One after.
All right, so can I get a motion to set a public hearing for,
What do we do?
let me hold off on this for a second.
October
because
9th, maybe?
The meeting is right now scheduled for October 9th, right?
Right.
It's not October 10th. All right,
No, go ahead, sorry.
do you have a problem with October 9th?
Yeah.
All right, before we get to the setting of the public hearing for that, something I've been meaning to bring up and I haven't, is that I have a conflict now for October 9th. Pascal, do you have a conflict for October 9th?
I have a, no, for the 10th, sorry, that's.
The 10th is the day that we moved it off of because Dennis had a conflict on the 10th.
Yeah, and I have a conflict on
All right, so it's not on the 10th, it's now on the
the
9th.
9th.
Now,
I should be fine, sorry.
is everybody else okay with the 9th? Because I don't necessarily, I mean, I haven't missed a meeting ever, but I can miss a meeting if we want to keep our schedule. And Pascal can be in charge.
Yeah, no,
Pascal-
don't make me do that, no.
All right, all right, can we, if we had to change the date of the meeting, could we change the date of the public hearing, or would we have to
As
do it?
long as we don't have,
We could change it in our next meeting.
yeah, we're not sending out the vote. Until you send out the notice of public hearing, you can change the date. So why don't you just authorize the scheduling of the public hearing for this affordable housing chapter 120 amendment for a date to be determined by the village administrator.
Motion to authorize the scheduling of public hearing on the issue of affordable housing minimums in chapter 120 to be held at the village hall on a date to be determined, at a time to be determined. Can I get that motion?
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I will send out an email about the question about whether we want to move the meeting on the 9th, because we moved it and then I have a problem on the 9th that I cannot avoid. It has to do with my son, so I can't, he's the boss. I don't have an option. All right, communications. Was there anything in communications that requires action, or we just notifying them? We have a, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I talking about the scheduling of the public hearing. We need to do that as quickly as possible. Okay, there are a number of potential developments in the process right now that will probably be coming to the village board for a special permit. And we really need to get it on the book to make the change as soon as possible.
Okay.
Because I don't want a developer to hang their hat on that.
We have the meeting after this meeting. After the next meeting. 2 meetings from now, right? That's what, we can't do it earlier than 2 meetings.
September 26th would be too tight, because we have to publish it, the notice of public hearing, the journal news, and they need to have it like 20 days ahead. So the 26th would be too tight. The October meeting, whether it's gonna be the 9th or some other date, you know, not the 10th, obviously. But the first meeting in October, whatever that date is definitely doable. Why don't we select a date now?
No, that's a fair point.
Everybody take your calendars
Well-
out, we'll pick a date.
I'm gonna send something out.
Can we do that during executive session, or?
Whatever you want to do.
You can't set, you can't do an executive session with every date, yeah.
Sure you
No, but
can.
we can just pick the date.
Oh, right.
Make a decision.
We can just pick the
I
date.
thought you meant it has to be like
Alright.
public discussion.
If you wanna, I mean, listen, I can look at the calendar, I can do it Tuesday the 8th.
I'm not gonna be,
See, that's what I mean. I don't
Yeah,
wanna
yeah,
have everybody
yeah,
look at the
just-
calendar.
yeah.
I'll send an email and I'll send out a doodle or something and we'll try to figure out a time. But we'll be mindful of Joe's point that we want to try to get this before we have a situation where somebody relies upon the legislation, although it's slightly different because they're not breaking ground or anything between now
Yeah,
and
you have to
October.
have a building permit issued and substantial construction expenditures for the best, but pragmatically, I think it's better sooner than later. like-
Sooner than later, okay.
Because you don't want to be in a position where someone goes through the land use board approval process, gets their approvals, does not yet have a building permit, and then we throw this at them.
Okay,
It's just gonna, it's just.
let's do it as soon as we can
It's gonna
and
invite antagonism, confrontation and legal threats and. Yes.
all right, the communications, anything that we have to address specifically in the meeting? And right now on the communications, I'm not looking at what the actual communication was right now.
Is Rich Bose here?
Oh, if somebody's been here for communication this whole meeting, I feel terrible. About like hours ago.
I mean, I asked him
Oh, the
when-
Bridge Street, this is the
when he
Bridge Street.
submitted this
improvements.
to come up and say hello to you at the beginning of the meeting, but he wasn't here, so.
He wasn't, no one came up to talk to me about this. Bridge Street has asked for them to get parking permits to be able to park on the street. Because they don't want to walk across the, there's very limited parking. There's a lot of units on that street and there's parking nearby, but it's a walkable. I don't know that we can do this because, I mean, I wouldn't even recommend that we start this because then we'll have every,
Oh, they want parking.
and in order to have parking permits, we need state legislation authorizing.
It's a nice.
It's a nightmare. And I don't think that, I mean, obviously we have limited parking and it's a difficult thing. I respect the request, but
Like less than
I don't-
50% of your street.
Can you just, oh, sorry, maybe later, I'd like to hear
Yeah.
how that works, because this question comes up periodically for the village, particularly around the hospital,
I'd be happy.
and I'd like to understand more about what that looks like.
I'd be happy to discuss. Happy to. I'm literally in the middle of it.
the other communication involved the issue that we've talked about with regards to the park. And then we got a nice letter, a nice email from Elisa Coley about the painting of the crosswalks in Main Street and Broadway. All right, so that leaves us with, if anybody else has public comment on any issue, we'll put 1 minute on the clock for anybody that wants to come up and speak. If not, do we have any reason for an executive session? Was there something before that we went to an executive session
I
on?
thought we were just briefly over it.
That was gonna be,
Those like legal things.
what was the,
No, I know, it's very not probably. Joe, you had.
I just don't remember what it was.
Okay, all right.
No
need to go. It was about the waterfront thing and whether there was.
Can I just
Yeah,
say that the comments before regarding the Claremont condominiums were made by somebody who had started a lawsuit against the village? I'm happy to have those conversations, filling in the many blanks and inaccuracies that the board needs to understand on that case.
I understand. I
Yeah,
would like to
executive
just get a
session.
proposal from them that they're trying to resolve this and then see where we go from there. That's all. You know, I don't know if their proposal, if it's not unreasonable, then I don't necessarily, the history of it is not as important as whether we try to just get it past us. But your point's well taken. Yes, I did not take for gospel what was said in terms of the characterization of the relationship that you had. All right, if we do not have a need for an executive session, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. And we're going to be adjourning in honor of Michael Brady, who remained through the whole meeting, which is probably harder than the 40 years that you walked the beat of Nyack to sit through 40 through the whole meeting. After 40 years, congratulations again. Can I get a motion to adjourn in his honor?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned.
Every day.